One of my favorite genre of games is 3D platformers, as they're mostly what I grew up playing. It was mostly shitty licensed platformers on my PS2, because apparently my parents thought that I'd prefer the Scooby game over the actual good game. And in all fairness, I did, because I was a dumb kid who loved, and still loves, the concept of 4 teens and a dog meddling in the plans of realtors dressed around in stupid costumes and masks. But more importantly, I loved platformers, because they threw me into these colorful playgrounds and worlds with such unique ways and moves to navigate them. And I loved being placed in a world with a goal and being handed the tools that I need to get to that goal and figuring out how to manipulate them to traverse these worlds and see everything that I wanted to see, overcoming any boundary or obstacle in my way, mastering the movement and making it my own. Of course, as I've grown up, I've learned what actual good platformers are, playing all the classics by very legal means, I assure you, but I still cherish those old memories of me sitting in front of the TV, playing those shitty PS2 licensed platformers, trying to make them my bitch. Those old shitty ass games are what planted my love for platformers. And now that love is just flourishing with the absolute thriving scene of indie 3D platformers today. So many absolute bangers have come out within the last year or two. Pseudo Regalia, Corn Kids 64, Super Kiwi 64, Cavern of Dreams, Super Sammy Roll, Lunastice, Tinykin, Demon Turf, Here Comes Nico, Orbo's Odyssey, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, if you count that one. Need I go on? The point is, we have absolutely no shortage of fantastic 3D indie platformers to choose from right now. Man, I'm sure there's still so many indie 3D platformers that have just fallen between my cracks. Gone under my radar. We all have games that we find that not many others have played, and that's why we recommend them to people. And by recommend them, I mean bug your friends until they buy the game, or make a YouTube video telling people about this cool little taxi game that you feel like not enough people have heard about. That's right, intro out of the way, we're finally getting into what this video is actually about. A lovely little platformer with no jump button, and one where you play as a taxi. Also, real quick, I want to give an epilepsy warning because there are some flashing lights and shit, so watch this video at your own discretion, obviously. Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom is a game heavily inspired by the classics of the PS1 and N64 era. It's a collectathon platformer with a hub world that connects to various themed levels, just like your Marios and Banjos, except laced with a little bit of acid because this game is as trippy as my grandmother going down the stairs. This is a bit of a surrealist game where you are zooming through a town run by a pizza cult, running over anyone in your way and doing absurd air tricks to skip across town to save time because grandma is in your backseat and if we're being honest, she doesn't have much time left. And may I remind you, there's no fucking jump button in this game. And apparently there are no fucking Uber drivers either. Okay, so the actual basis of this game is you play as a little taxi created by this very legally distinct enough character named Morio. Did you know that this game is a work of fiction and any and all resemblances are entirely coincidental? So Morio created you to help put a stop to this alien invasion, an invasion led by the company Tosla and their CEO, Unmasked. Did I mention that this game is a work of fiction and any and all resemblances are entirely coincidental? So Unmasked and Tosla are corrupting everything with this weird green oil, and you have to put a stop to them. In order to do that, you need to collect enough gears to power the teleporter to Tosla HQ. Morio's lab acts as our hub world here, connecting to all the levels in the game. So the gears are like stars in Super Mario 64. Get enough of them and unlock a new level. You find gears in levels, and there are many spread about and hidden in each level, and there are even some in the hub world too. Unlike Super Mario 64, however, you're not kicked out of a level when you get a gear, so they're more like moons in Mario Odyssey. You're free to explore and find as many gears as you can in a level, and when you've found enough to activate another teleporter in the lab, you'll get a little notification. There are 2 types of collectibles in a level, the gears and the harder to get golden bunnies. So the golden bunnies are often found in more obscured areas that require more skill with the movement to reach. On the topic of the movement, let's get into what makes this game truly unlike any other platformers that I've played. Once you've found enough gears in the lab, the portal to the first level, Morio's home, opens up. In this level, we are introduced to the core movement and mechanics of this game. This game is unlike all the other girls and doesn't control like your typical 3D platformer, which of course makes sense because Mario doesn't move the same as a fucking Mercedes-Benz. The left joystick doesn't move you forward or back, it only turns you left or right. In order to move forward, you need to press A, and in order to move back, you press B. Accelerate and reverse are also mapped to the right and left triggers on the controller, so this kind of plays like any other racing game that you might have played. Which would make sense because you're a fucking car. The only other button that you have to press is X or Y, which is your dash move. It's called the flip-o-will, and how this move works is that it has this wind-up animation where you spin around and then dash forward. This is an opening level, so of course it lets you fuck around and figure out the kinks of the movement, the physics, and how it all plays with the environment. Like, you're shown an inclining hill with some coins leading up to it and a platform across the gap in front of the hill. This is showing you that something can be done here to cross this gap, but simply driving up the ramp won't get you enough distance to cross. But oh wait, I just learned about a dash move, I bet I can cross it by using that dash on the incline. I know, not mind-blowing shit, but effective at teaching you how to utilize your toolkit and the terrain. The opening level is good at showing you how you move, and how you can use that movement and the terrain around you to really move across levels and reach places that you didn't think you would be able to. And overall, the movement feels really good, speedy yet tight to control. Dashes off ramps feel like they have good trajectory and weight to them, and turning controls are quite responsive. Using the triggers on the controller is best for acceleration and reverse, as you have more control, allowing you to slowly accelerate or reverse. Now, I said there wasn't a jump button, and technically, that is correct. But when I was fucking around in the opening level, I found out that there is sort of a way to jump. Now, the game doesn't tell you this till a bit later, but it isn't hard to figure out if you mess around with the controls like I was. You can cancel a dash. When the taxi is in the wind-up animation, you can cancel it by pressing accelerate or the dash button again. Doing so will cause the taxi to do this little flip in the air, and the dash has a recharge meter, which takes more time to recharge each time you dash in the air. But the first time it recharges quick enough for you to cancel dash again midair, allowing you to do a sort of double jump. I felt so smart when I figured this out. I figured that since the game didn't tell me that I could do it, it was some like secret move for more skilled players, but no, it does tell you a bit later. However, it is still pretty cool. Also, if you press accelerate right after the wind-up animation for the dash, the second you start moving forward, you do a turbo dash, netting you a lot more speed and distance. The turbo dash for me felt very hard to pull off. Like, I struggled to do it consistently at first. Eventually, I did start to get it somewhat down and managed to do it somewhat consistently, but I felt like it had to be a frame-perfect thing. But maybe it was meant to be a more advanced move for those really seeking to master this game's movement, or maybe I'm just bad at the game. That's probably it. I never needed the super dash to progress in the game, so I think it's okay being something for the more advanced players, which is not me. You can also cancel a dash with reversing, and doing so will have you do a sort of backflip, which gets you higher than a regular dash cancel, but with this you can only direct to the sides and not the front. Overall, movement felt very smooth and good to control with many possibilities to put it to use. Mid-air movement in general feels really good in this game, and the game gives you more control than you realistically would have in a driving game, but I think it's for the best here, and also, like fuck, this game is realistic. You have a lot of control mid-air, and I think it's necessary here for some of the more precise platforming, because precise platforming as a car, as you would imagine, would not be easy. The mid-air movement feels very satisfying, stringing together dashes and dash cancels to reach places the devs didn't even plan on you being able to reach. Dashing through the air and committing to a direction will really get you a lot of distance, but you can slow that leap down and back it up a little by reversing. You can reverse mid-air, which, again, doesn't make sense for a car, but works with the platforming and the level design. Okay, so let's talk about the level design. So generally, each level is a pretty open playground, with gear scattered about, people to talk to and sometimes do things for, lots of shit you can destroy, and lots of terrain and set pieces meticulously placed to use to commit several traffic law and physics law violations. Okay, so let's start with the first actual level, technically the second, Bombeach. So this level takes a lot of inspiration from the level Bomb Battlefield in Super Mario 64. There's a mountain, and on the summit of it is a bomb car that you have to defeat, which we will talk about later. For now, there's a town that surrounds the base of the mountain, and with the ocean surrounding the town. There's plenty of vertical play space in this level, with slanted rooftops on houses that you can use to quickly skip up the mountain. Overall, this is something that Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom does very well, using verticality in its levels and allowing the player to really play with it. The levels are laid out so the player can zoom through them, bumping up and down, dashing across obstacles, and using slants to gain great heights, and it's really fucking fun. In the Bombeach level and a couple other levels, you have a limited amount of time. So basically you need your spring that powers you to be kept wind up in order to move, and Morio isn't there to wind it up for you. So what you have to do is to get other people to wind it for you in exchange for playing taxi. The quicker you get them to where they need to go, the more time they give you. Basically, it's the game Crazy Taxi, except even more crazy. I fucking love these levels because they really encourage you to go absolutely ballistic, tearing through them, taking impossible shortcuts to save time, slowly improving your skill and knowledge of the movement and layout of the land. And also, all the characters that you talk to are so fucking weird, and I am absolutely here for it. Like, I picked up this pizza man, a dude who literally made a pizza, and he told me to take him to the pizzeria, and he was telling me about how excited he was that he got a job there, but he wasn't sure what his role was gonna be. Oh, the poor buddy. Another time, this old lady with glasses so thick that they don't lie told me to drive her across the street. Literally took less than a second, and it was very funny. I absolutely adore the absurdity of this game. Like in the Pizza Town level, all the pizza delivery guys are going crazy because they keep hearing screaming, and it's coming from the pizzas themselves. And there's this lawyer guy who's always in every level who reminds you that this game is a work of fiction and any and all resemblances are entirely coincidental. Like, he shows up so much. It's almost as if this game is a work of fiction and any and all resemblances are entirely coincidental. Coincidental. Nintendo, Elon, coincidental. The game is having so much fun with itself, I felt like I should have left the room sometimes, and I love it for that. So getting back to the boss of Bombeach, it's a pretty easy fight. Basically, he just drives around and there's a bomb dispenser nearby, and these bombs will follow you and eventually detonate. You just have to get the bombs to detonate and hit him 3 times, and that's it. It's not much of a boss fight, honestly, but I think it's fine and serviceable. To be fair, this game doesn't really focus on boss fights. There's only like 3 of them total in the game. The game is more about driving around crazy obstacle courses, and spread through these obstacle course levels are checkpoints. Whenever you fall down a bottomless pit, hit spikes, run out of time, or any other form of game over, you respawn back at the last checkpoint that you touched. Spread throughout levels are also these little robot dudes who can take you back to the last checkpoint that you touched. So they kind of function like fast travel, except that's not really their purpose. They're really meant to help save you the pain of having to make your way back up to somewhere really high that you might have fallen down from. Okay, so I guess technically that is fast travel. In the Tosla office level, you're scaling a bunch of buildings and doing a lot of high-up platforming, which, again, is cool that the devs managed to work such verticality in a game with no actual jump button, but you will probably fall down all the way to the streets a fair number of times, meaning you have to take a fair amount of time working your way back up to where you were each time you fell down. But there are some checkpoints up there and some little dudes on the ground, so they'll take you back up, saving you the hassle. I think this system works because there aren't too many checkpoints, so if you fall down, you're probably not taken back to exactly where you were, unless you're bad like me and fell down right in front of the checkpoint, but if you're not like me, you still have to work your way back to where you were, but not nearly as much work as you would have to do with fewer or no checkpoints in the game. I think it's just the right amount of checkpoints to be fair and forgiving, saving many players a lot of time and frustration, while still holding the players accountable for the mistakes and failures and making them work back a little of that progress that they lost. Okay, now let's talk about the presentation of the game. I don't need to talk much about it because you can probably see. But hey, if you can't, this game is heavily inspired by the 64-bit era, like I've said, as a lot of 3D indie platformers are, and I just fuck with it so much that honestly I would put a ring on it and marry it if I could. Also, it's not like I have any other offers lined up, so... I am a big slut for retro aesthetics, despite not even being alive during the N64 era. I also like games with big graphics, don't get me wrong, but man, nothing gets me bigger than those chunky polygons. I should cut that line out. Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom doesn't look exactly like any old N64 game though. The game does have that low poly sharp look reminiscent of the N64 era, but it's more clean and has such a poppy art style that is somehow cute and disturbing at the same time. Man, like all throughout my playthrough of this game, I'd just be looking at the most ridiculous fucking characters and the trippy atmosphere, and I'd just be like, what the hell am I playing all throughout my playthrough, and it was fucking great. I love an art style that can constantly surprise me with its wackiness. This is a pretty surreal game, so there will be a bunch of random shit like dogs throwing it back in the sky for some reason. All the random shit still does kind of pertain to the levels and their themes, so it doesn't feel too out of place. The art style and vibe of the game pairs so well with the balls to the walls music that pumps your blood with the will of initial fucking D. Being an IGN reviewer here for a second, it is music that makes you feel like speed. There is, however, variety in the soundtrack, with some levels having more chilled back songs. Hell, the song for the final level sounds like a track straight out of Super Mario Galaxy. I shit you not, listen to this. Also, whenever you go underwater, the music will sound more muffled and distant, and then will change back to normal when you resurface. That's dynamic audio, and it's pretty cool. I'm not really one who understands the complexities of music and how it works. I was never a band kid or played any instrument growing up, but I can appreciate a banger soundtrack when I hear one, and so can you. I've been playing this game's music for the entire video, obviously. You can hear it, you know how it sounds. One of my favorite parts of this game is the hats. With the gold that you collect, you can purchase hats that are spread across the levels and in hat shops. There are so many hats in this game, and they are purely for cosmetics. Unless they're considered a collectible for completion, I don't know. It's almost just like another system in another platformer, but this is a work of fiction, and any and all resemblances are entirely coincidental. For real though, I don't think that this is copying Super Mario Odyssey. Other platformers can have and have had cosmetics. Mario ain't the first to wear clothes, or a lack thereof. Anyway, the hats do nothing, but I just loved collecting them, as there were so many cool hat designs I could never stick with just one. Although I did notice one hat that did technically do something. There's a joystick hat that looks like the classic Atari controller, and the joystick on the hat actually moves with the joystick on your controller. It's small, but it's a really neat touch. Anyways, the various themes for the levels are all super cool, and the levels really take full use of these themes. Like, there's a 90s arcade themed level with a bowling alley that if you hit all the pins down yourself, the game will call you a cheater. And all the staff are bowling pin people that if you knock down will make the bowling pin sound effect. And you can drive through a sort of pinball-like machine, and then there's this giant pachinko machine that doesn't suck complete ass to play. Then there's this level that's like New York, with this giant ape at the top of the skyscraper, and you have to scale the buildings and skyscraper and hit the big monkey in his bulging anus because he's constipated. It's a weird game. I know. I want to get back to the level design for a minute, specifically for two certain levels. The first is the Crash Test Industries level. All throughout this level, and for some brief moments in some other levels, the controls change. The game changes to a more top-down perspective, where you control the taxi's movement entirely with the left joystick. It plays similar to how you would play a top-down racing game. You move forward in whatever direction the stick points. You still have your dash, but you can't cancel it. It's interesting because it's specifically limiting your movement, taking away part of your moveset. But now you're using the moves that you do have smarter, really trying to make the most of your limited options, really utilizing ramps and other angled surfaces to your advantage. I think it's a neat idea that doesn't overstay its welcome, as there aren't really many other segments that switch to this control style outside of this specific level. Like, the only other major time that it changes control like this is in the Tosla office level, when there is a metal top-geared solid stealth section. The other level that I want to talk about is Morio's Mind. In this level, you go into Morio's mind, obviously, to retrieve a password that he forgot in order to open a door in the lab. It's a really cool idea for a level theme, and similar to Psychonauts. In this level, there is a giant subconscious Morio in the center of it, and he's constantly firing a laser beam at you, which, if it hits you, makes you restart from the last checkpoint you touched. I'm honestly a little conflicted on this level because I would need to stop and hide behind cover a lot and go when the laser pauses for a couple seconds. And I felt like this was interrupting the fast-paced chaotic driving that makes this game so fun. I tried to see if I could just outrun the laser, and I could sometimes. Maybe if the laser was a bit slower, it would be better, making it so that there's still pressure to drive bonkers, otherwise the laser will catch up, but it's slow enough that it doesn't feel too fast or unfair. I don't know, maybe it's fine and I'm just bad at the game. That's probably it. Anyways, this level is super cool though, and it's pretty surreal. Well, even more surreal, I guess. Like, the coins and the gears all look disfigured and melting, and there's just something off with the whole thing. If you're a completionist, the game is pretty good at helping the player keep track of what they have and what they need. In the pause menu, there's a world map, which shows a diagram of the hub world and all the levels connected to it, and the sub-areas in those levels that you can travel to, and how many gears are in each, and how many that you have. What's really helpful is having the sub-areas being separate from the main levels, because it separates the gears of the sub-areas from the gears of the level. So if you're coming back to a level looking for a gear, you don't have to worry if it's in any of the sub-areas because it's separate on the world map and would just say if you're missing a gear in that specific area. The game is also pretty completion friendly right off the bat because the game kinda gives you all your moves at the start. You just need to learn how to master them over the game. Like, in the earlier levels, I'd see shit far off in the distance and wonder how the hell I'd get there. But then I'd come back and be like, oh, I see how to do this now, I just need to boost off this incline and do a reverse dash cancel, then boost off of there. And I think it's really cool having like everything accessible from the beginning. You just need to learn how to utilize your moveset and the environment to access those more tricky places. There are, however, some places that are actually inaccessible till you hit the switch in the Crash Test Industries level that makes these blocks appear in these outlined areas throughout all the levels and the hub world. I get that this was probably done to encourage the player to come back to levels. They'd see that they can't access something and it looks like some platforms are missing, so they should come back later. But I feel like it may have been better to have everything accessible from the beginning, so the player feels more rewarded when they figure out how to reach that gear that they had no clue how to, knowing that it was their improvement in the knowledge and mastery of the movement that got them that gear, rather than a switch just not having been pressed yet. It's kinda the same for the hub world too. Most of it is accessible right at the start, but there are some parts that aren't accessible until you press that switch or get certain items in certain levels. Like, there are these two items that you need to find in these two levels, the Golden Spring and the Golden Propeller. The Golden Spring basically gives you invulnerability for a brief time, and you need it to get past these spikes here in the lab. Unless there's a trick to get past them, which there probably is, that other players have discovered. The Golden Propeller is an item that basically increases your dash cancel jump height. It has a limited use of 3 before you have to pick up another, and you need it here in the lab to get up to here. I don't know, I'm a little conflicted wanting to be able to access everything right off the bat, but I also understand encouraging players to revisit levels and controlling player progression. Another thing that I felt kind of unsure about was the second boss fight in the game. It's a fight against Alien Mosque in the level where you get the Golden Spring. At first, I thought the fight was too hard. So how it works is you're in a Pac-Man-like maze, playing with the top-down controls, and there's a bunch of dudes chasing you, and if they grab you, it's game over and back to the checkpoint, and you have to restart the fight. In order to win, you have to hit Alien Mosque 3 times as he runs around the maze. I kept getting grabbed and having to restart the fight. I felt like I should have had a health bar or something, but then I realized that golden springs pop up in the maze, and they're basically power pellets like in Pac-Man. Then the fight was easy as shit and was over in a second. I feel like this fight was too easy and basic. Like, maybe the fight could have had you scaling cabinets trying to knock down shit on him, or something that involves skillful platforming and movement that tests your skills, rather than just a chase around a basic maze. Again, boss fights are not really a focus of this game, but I do think that they had more potential. The last boss fight I think is better than the other ones. And I'm getting into endgame spoilers here, so if you care, skip to whatever time Editor Me is putting up on the screen right now. So the final boss turns out to be none other than Morio's grandma. It turns out she's the head of this alien invasion and is totally corrupted by the green oil. In this fight, you're in a sort of arena with her, with the green oil constantly rising. There are many platforms in the air for you to maneuver your way up. Basically, if you touch the goo, game over, and Grandma will be shooting projectiles at you that will knock you back into the goo. In order to win, you have to get her projectiles to hit these 3 electrical rod thingies, then hit her in the ass when she's down, and that's it. I think that this is a better boss battle, as it has you actually utilizing your movement and skills, using what you've learned from up to this point, and actually putting it to the test. Not having you chase some guy around a basic maze or laying some bombs in someone's tracks. And then, that's the end of the game. Although there is a fair amount of post-game content if you're still itching for some zoomies and total completion. And let me tell you, the post-game content will really test your skills, as the extra levels are the hardest in the game and really kick the difficulty up a notch, really testing your skills and what you've learned. God, this game was just so unlike any other platformer I have ever played. Like, even in my wildest dreams, I could not imagine a platformer that plays with fucking cart controls of all things. But fuck, man, it can work, and it works so fucking well here. The movement is just perfect, and the level's designed so well around it to really elevate that movement and make it feel all the greater and more fun. I really hope that this video has convinced at least one person to get this game, because it's probably one of my favorite games that I've played this year, if not one of my favorite platformers of all time, and it's such a well-made game. I can't wait to see what the speedrunning community does with this game, because the game is made to be absolutely broken. Also, there's a YouTuber that I watch who I'm sure at least one of the 6 of you watching this video probably also watch. NitroRad. He has such a deep love for 3D platformers, and I am just waiting for him to make a video on this game. It's coming, I know it is, it's coming. Anyway, indie games are cool, support small creators, so on and so forth. Please feel free to recommend me random-ass games and overlooked indie games down in the comments. I absolutely love when people do that. Or if you do know this game and have played it yourself, tell me what you think about the game, or about how wrong I am with all my opinions. There's gonna be at least one of you, I know of it. Thanks for watching, honestly, I have a lot more content planned, and it's not gonna be another 3-month gap between uploads. I mean, look, I got this one pretty quickly out after the last one. So stay tuned, and subscribe maybe, because today is my birthday. As far as you know, I'm not telling you when it is, and you're not invited to my party. And there's gonna be a guy doing balloon animals, so